I sit in the passenger seat of my own car, keys clutched in my trembling hand, staring at the entrance to Denver Cancer Center. The dashboard clock reads 10:47 a.m. My appointment was at 10:30. Through the windshield, I watch other patients walking through the automatic doors with family members, spouses holding arms, adult children carrying bags, friends offering steady support. I'd love to know which corner of the globe you're watching from. And if this story speaks to you, make sure to subscribe. Tomorrow's video is one you absolutely can't miss. My phone buzzes. A text from Mom. Stuck in traffic. Dad's handling the Henderson account crisis. Can you reschedule? This is my 4th chemotherapy session. She's never made it to one. The nausea from last week's treatment still lingers in the back of my throat, a metallic taste that no amount of ginger tea can wash away. My scalp tingles where my hair has started thinning, though I've been wearing baseball caps to hide it. At 26, I never imagined I'd be counting the strands that come out in my shower drain. I dialed Dad's office. His secretary, Mrs. Patterson, answers with her usual professional warmth. Blackwood Architecture, this is Patricia speaking. Hi, Mrs. Patterson, it's Emma. Is my dad available? Oh, honey. She drops to a whisper. He's in the conference room with the Henderson clients. That shopping center project, Been there since 8 this morning. Should I interrupt? The automatic doors at the cancer center slide open again. A woman about my age emerges, pale and thin, leaning heavily on a man who must be her husband. He guides her carefully to a wheelchair someone has brought outside. No, don't interrupt. It's fine. But it's not fine. It hasn't been fine since Dr. Martinez called 3 months ago with my test results, her voice gentle but unwavering as she explained the diagnosis. Stage 2 breast cancer, aggressive treatment plan. Chemotherapy every 3 weeks for 6 months. I'd been sitting in my downtown Portland apartment when she called, surrounded by architectural drawings for the community center I was designing, my first major project since joining Dad's firm straight out of graduate school. The irony wasn't lost on me. Designing a space meant to bring people together while receiving news that would isolate me from everything I thought I knew about my life. The parking lot at the cancer center is full of ordinary-looking cars. Subarus with baby seats, pickup trucks with fishing gear, compact cars with student parking permits. Cancer doesn't discriminate. It finds you in your everyday life and rearranges everything. I lock my car and walk toward the entrance, my messenger bag heavy with the notebook in which I've been sketching building designs during treatments. It helps pass the time and keeps my mind occupied. The automatic doors sense my approach and slide open with a soft whoosh. The reception area smells like industrial-strength disinfectant mixed with something trying to be comforting, vanilla maybe, or artificial flowers. Motivational posters line the walls. Courage is not the absence of fear. Every day is a gift. The kind of phrases that probably comfort some people, but feel hollow when you're 26 and your parents can't remember which day you might die. Emma Blackwood, I tell the receptionist, a woman with kind eyes and purple scrubs covered in cartoon cats. Running a little late today, honey? She asks, checking her computer screen. No worries, honey. Room 3 is ready for you. I've learned the routine. Check in, get called back, settle into the reclining chair that will be my home for the next 4 hours while poison drips into my veins to kill the cancer cells trying to kill me. The nurse will ask about side effects from the last treatment, take my vital signs, access my port, a small device surgically implanted under my collarbone that makes it easier to receive IV medications. Room 3 has a window facing the courtyard. I've watched the seasons change through that glass over the past 2 months. The aspen trees were golden when I started treatment. Now they're bare, their white bark stark against the November sky. How are we feeling today, sweetheart? I turn to see a woman in navy scrubs entering the room. She's maybe 40, with graying brown hair pulled back in a practical ponytail and laugh lines around her eyes. Her badge reads Sarah Martinez, RN, BSN. Not related to my oncologist, despite the shared last name. I'm okay, I said, settling into the reclining chair. It's become an automatic response.
Sarah pulls up a rolling stool and sits at eye level with me, her hands folded in her lap. This is different. Usually the nurses are bustling around, preparing medications, checking charts. This feels like she's actually seeing me. That's what you said last time, and the time before that. I'm wondering if that's really true.
Something in her tone catches me off guard. It's not the professionally cheerful voice I've gotten used to from medical staff. It's a real concern. My parents couldn't make it today, I hear myself saying. Work stuff. Sarah nods slowly, making a note in my chart. And last time, were they here for your second treatment? I shake my head. What about the first one? They were supposed to come, but my dad had a client emergency. My mom was going to drive me, but she got called in to cover someone's shift at the hospital. Sarah writes something else. Your mom works at a hospital? She's a nurse, ironically. The word comes out more bitter than I intended. Emergency department at Good Samaritan. She saves other people's kids every day. This conversation feels dangerous, like I'm admitting something I've been trying not to think about. My parents love me, they're just busy. Dad's architectural firm has been struggling since the economic downturn, and every client matters. Mom works 12-hour shifts in the ER, dealing with actual life and death emergencies. My chemotherapy appointments can be rescheduled if necessary. Except they can't, really. Dr. Martinez has been clear about staying on schedule for the best outcomes. Let me get your pre-medication started, Sarah says, standing up. The anti-nausea drugs will help you feel better during treatment. She moves efficiently around the room, preparing syringes and checking medication labels twice. Her movements are practiced but not rushed. Unlike the other nurses I've worked with, she doesn't seem to be managing multiple patients at once. Sarah, I ask as she cleans the access point on my port, how many patients do you usually have at a time? Today, just you, she says, looking up from the IV tubing. I requested to be assigned as your primary nurse. Why? She pauses, her hand still on the medication pump. Because I notice some things, like how you always arrive alone, how you never ask for help even when you're clearly feeling sick, how you apologize when you need extra time in the bathroom because the treatments make you nauseated. The anti-nausea medication begins flowing through the IV line, cold in my arm. My patients shouldn't have to apologize for having cancer, Sarah says, and they shouldn't have to go through treatment alone. Through the window, I watch a couple walking slowly through the courtyard. The woman is obviously a patient, thin, wearing a colorful headscarf, moving carefully. The man beside her matches her pace, his hand hovering protectively near her elbow without actually touching. When she needs to sit on a bench, he sits too, pulling out a thermos and pouring something hot into a cup they share. I've been thinking, Sarah says, adjusting the IV pump settings, about transportation. Do you drive yourself here every time? Usually. Sometimes I take an Uber if I'm feeling too sick after treatment. What about getting home? I don't answer immediately. The truth is complicated. After my first treatment, I was so nauseated and exhausted that I sat in the parking lot for 2 hours before feeling safe to drive. After the second, I threw up in a gas station bathroom on the way home and had to pull over 3 more times. Last week, I made it home but spent the rest of the day on my bathroom floor, too weak to make it to my bed. I manage, I finally say. Sarah stops what she's doing and looks directly at me. Emma, I need you to understand something. Managing isn't the same as being cared for, and you deserve to be cared for. The words hit something deep in my chest, a place I've been trying to keep sealed off. I blink hard, focusing on the IV pump's digital display. Numbers I can understand, medication flowing at measured rates, quantifiable progress. My parents aren't bad people, they're just busy, Sarah finishes. I know. But cancer doesn't wait for convenient timing. She attaches the bag containing my chemotherapy drugs to the IV pole. The liquid inside is clear, looking harmless despite its powerful effects. I want to try something different for your next appointment, if you're open to it. What is different?
A lot of love and effort went into bringing this story to life. If you're enjoying it, we'd be so grateful if you'd subscribe to our channel. Now, back to where we left off. I finish my shift at 7 on treatment days. I could drive you home afterward, make sure you're settled. And I've been thinking about your transportation here. There might be some options we haven't explored. The offer hangs between us. Part of me wants to say yes immediately, to stop pretending I have everything under control. But another part, the part that's been trained since childhood not to be a burden, hesitates. You don't have to do that, I say. I'm sure you have your own family to get home to. I do. 2 teenagers who are perfectly capable of heating up leftovers without burning down the house. Sarah's smile is warm, genuine. And a husband who's been a nurse longer than I have. He understands that sometimes our patients become our people. She checks her watch and makes another note in my chart. The chemotherapy will run for about 3 hours today. We'll monitor you closely for any reactions. Try to rest if you can. As Sarah moves around the room, checking equipment and organizing supplies, I find myself studying her. There's something different about how she works compared to the other nurses I've encountered. She's not rushing through a checklist. She's not managing me as a task to be completed efficiently. She's seeing me. The realization is both comforting and terrifying. For months, I've been floating through this experience feeling like I'm watching it happen to someone else, going through the motions of treatment while pretending it's not really changing everything about my life. Telling my parents I'm fine so they don't have to worry. Showing up to work between treatments and acting like nothing's wrong. But Sarah is looking at me like I'm a real person going through something real. Like it's okay to not be okay. My phone buzzes again. Another text from Mom. How did the appointment go? I hope everything went smoothly. Dad says the Henderson meeting went well. Dinner Sunday? I stare at the message for a long moment. She's asking about the appointment like it already happened, like it was a routine doctor's visit instead of a 4-hour medical procedure, like I didn't need anyone there with me. Everything okay? Sarah asks, noticing my expression. I show her the text without really deciding to. She reads it, her face carefully neutral. They care, I say, feeling the need to defend them. They just don't really understand what this involves. Have you explained it to them? The question stops me cold. Have I? I think about the conversations we've had since my diagnosis. Me saying I'm fine, treatments are going well, nothing to worry about. Them asking general questions about timing and prognosis, but never the details of what chemotherapy actually feels like. I don't think I have, I admit. That's not your fault, Sarah says firmly. It shouldn't be your job to educate your parents about supporting their child through cancer treatment. She pulls at the chair next to my reclining seat, settling in like she has all the time in the world. Tell me about work, she says. Are you still doing architecture? The change of subject is gentle, giving me space to move away from the complicated feelings about my parents. I tell her about the community center project, how I've been working on it between treatments, trying to create spaces that feel welcoming and safe. I keep thinking about sightlines, how people need to be able to see and be seen, how isolation happens when spaces don't connect properly. Sarah nods thoughtfully. Sounds like you're designing the kind of place you wish existed. The observation hits closer to home than I expected. I am designing spaces for connection, for community, for people to care for each other, spaces that work the way families should work. My phone remains silent on the bedside table. No follow-up texts from Mom asking how I'm feeling. No calls from Dad checking if I made it to the appointment safely. The quiet speaks louder than words. Sarah continues charting, occasionally checking my vital signs and asking about comfort levels. The room feels peaceful despite the weight of what's happening. For the first time since my diagnosis, I'm in a medical setting where someone is paying attention not just to my cancer, but to me. 3 weeks later, I'm back in room 3, watching Sarah prepare my pre-medications with the same careful attention she showed during my last visit. The familiar ritual should be comforting, but today something feels different. My hands shake slightly as I set my messenger bag on the small table beside the chair. Rough morning? Sarah asks, glancing up from the medication cart. I want to say no to maintain the facade that everything's manageable. Instead, I hear myself describing the scene from 2 hours earlier, standing in my parents' kitchen while they ate breakfast and discussed their day, neither of them mentioning that I had treatment scheduled. Dad was reviewing blueprints for the Morrison project, I tell Sarah, settling into the reclining chair. Mom was complaining about her supervisor changing the ER schedule again. I kept waiting for one of them to ask about today. Sarah's hands pause on the IV tubing. Did you remind them? I shouldn't have to remind them. The words come out sharper than I intended. I mean, it's every 3 weeks, same day, same time. It's been the same schedule for 3 months. As Sarah accesses my port, I find myself remembering other moments. Small things I'd pushed aside but that now feel significant. The way Mom's eyes glaze over when I mention side effects, how Dad changes the subject when I try to explain what chemotherapy actually involves, the family dinner where they spent an hour discussing my cousin's wedding plans but didn't ask about my most recent scan results. Tell me about growing up in your house, Sarah says, adjusting the IV pump. What was it like when you were sick as a kid? The question catches me off guard. I haven't thought about childhood illnesses in years. I don't remember being sick much, maybe the occasional cold or flu. What happened when you had the flu? I close my eyes, trying to recall. Images surface gradually. Me at age 8, home from school with a fever, making myself soup because Mom was at the hospital and Dad was at the office. I, at 12, missed my school's science fair because I had strep throat, watching it alone on the local access channel while my parents worked their respective shifts. I was pretty independent, I finally say. At 8 years old? The way Sarah asks makes it sound unusual, but it had seemed normal at the time. Mom worked nights at the ER, Dad often had evening client meetings or was traveling to job sites. I learned early how to take care of myself because there wasn't always someone available to take care of me. I say they trusted me to handle things, but even as the words come out, they sound less convincing than they used to. Sarah makes a note in my chart. What about bigger things? Did you ever get hurt? Need emergency medical care? The memory comes flooding back without warning. I'm 14, lying on the concrete floor of Dad's construction site office where I'd been helping him organize project files during summer break. I'd climbed on a chair to reach high shelves when it tipped, sending me crashing down. The sharp corner of a filing cabinet caught my forehead, opening a gash that bled heavily. Dad was at a client meeting across town. Mom was in the middle of a 12-hour ER shift. I called Dad's office, but Mrs. Patterson said he couldn't be interrupted. The client was considering a $1 million project. I called the hospital, but they said Mom was dealing with a multi-car accident and would call me back when possible. So I drove myself to urgent care, lying about my age and paying with the credit card Dad had given me for emergencies. 7 stitches and a concussion protocol later, I drove home and made dinner for when my parents returned. When Dad saw the bandage, I told him I'd fallen while organizing files. He patted my shoulder and said I was tough just like him. I never told them about driving myself to get stitched up. It seemed like something that would worry them unnecessarily. Emma, Sarah's voice brings me back to the present. You went somewhere else for a minute there. Just remembering something. I touched my forehead where a faint scar still marks the spot. I drove myself to urgent care once when I was 14, got stitches. Sarah's expression shifts, becoming more focused. Drive yourself. How old did you say you were? 14. I had a learner's permit, but I wasn't supposed to drive alone. The admission feels strange. I've never told anyone about that day, never thought of it as particularly significant. What happened to your parents that day? As I describe Dad's client meeting and Mom's emergency at work, I watch Sarah's face carefully. She's not writing in my chart anymore. She's listening with the kind of attention that makes me feel like my words matter. That must have been scary, she says when I finish. Being hurt and having to handle it alone. I managed fine. The automatic response comes quickly, but it sounds hollow in the quiet room. Managing and being taken care of are different things. A 14-year-old with a head injury shouldn't have to manage alone. She's quiet for a moment, checking the IV pump's display. Then she asks, what about school things? Plays, concerts, parent-teacher conferences?
This opens another flood of memories. Science fairs, where I stood alone next to my project while other kids explained their work to interested parents. High school graduation, where I saved 2 seats that remained empty because Dad had a site inspection and Mom picked up an extra shift. The college scholarship award ceremony, where I accepted recognition for academic achievement in front of an auditorium full of families, except mine. They were proud of me, I said quickly. They just had work obligations. I'm sure they were proud, Sarah agrees. But being proud and being present aren't the same thing. She pulls out a folder from my chart and shows me a form I haven't seen before. This is an emergency contact sheet from your first appointment. You listed your parents, but you also included someone named Rebecca Chen. Rebecca, my best friend from architecture school, now working for a firm in Seattle. I'd put her name down automatically, not really thinking about it. When was the last time you talked to Rebecca? Sarah asks. Last week. We video chat every Sunday. The routine is something I look forward to. Rebecca always remembers to ask about treatment side effects, about how I'm feeling emotionally, about whether I need anything. Does she know your treatment schedule? I nod. She sends care packages before each appointment. Ginger tea, books, puzzle magazines for the infusion room. She makes another note. And your parents? Do they send care packages? The question hangs in the air. My parents have never sent anything related to my treatment. They've never asked what might help with side effects or how to make the experience more comfortable. When I mentioned that ginger helps with nausea, Mom said, "That's nice, dear," and immediately started talking about problems in the ER. Rebecca understands what I'm going through, I say carefully. How is that possible? Has she had cancer? No, but she listens when I explain things. She asks questions. She remembered when I said the taste changes made coffee undrinkable, so she sent herbal teas instead. As I describe Rebecca's thoughtful gestures, I realize I'm unconsciously comparing them to my parents' responses. Rebecca, who lives 2,000 miles away, knows more about my daily experience with cancer than the people I see regularly. Tell me about last week, Sarah says. After your treatment, what happened when you got home? The memory is still fresh and raw. I'd felt nauseated during the drive home. Had to pull over twice to vomit in gas station bathrooms. When I finally made it to my apartment, I was so exhausted I could barely get my key in the lock. I spent the next 18 hours alternating between my bed and bathroom, too weak to eat, too nauseous to drink much water. Mom called around dinner time to chat about her day. When I mentioned feeling sick, she said, "That's rough, honey," and moved on to describing a difficult patient she had dealt with in the ER. She didn't ask if I needed anything or if anyone was checking on me. I managed, I tell Sarah, using the word that's become my default response to everything. What would have happened if you'd needed to go to the emergency room that night? Who would you have called? The question stops me cold. I would have called Rebecca, I realize, or possibly an ambulance for myself. The thought of calling my parents hadn't even occurred to me, not because I don't trust them, but because... Because what? Because they've trained me not to need them? Because I've learned that their priorities lie elsewhere? Emma, Sarah says softly, can I share something I've observed? I nod, suddenly nervous about what she might have noticed. You apologize constantly for being a few minutes late, for needing extra time in the bathroom, for asking questions about side effects. You minimize every symptom and dismiss every concern. When I offer help, your first response is always to insist you don't need it. She pauses, letting the words sink in. These are the behaviors of someone who's learned not to ask for help because they've been repeatedly shown that their needs are inconvenient. The assessment hits like a physical blow. I want to defend myself, to explain that I'm just independent, that I don't like being a burden, but the words stick in my throat because somewhere deep down, I recognize the truth in what she's saying.
I've been a pediatric oncology nurse for 15 years. I've seen every type of family response to childhood cancer. Some parents become overprotective helicopters. Some fall apart emotionally. Some throw themselves into research and advocacy. But I've never seen parents who just forget. They don't forget, I say quickly. They just...
Emma, Sarah's voice is gentle but firm. Today is your 5th treatment. You've been dealing with cancer for 4 months. In all that time, how many appointments have your parents attended? The answer is 0, but saying it out loud feels like betraying them. How many times have they called to check on you after treatment? 0 again. How many questions have they asked about your prognosis, your treatment plan, your side effects? I can't answer because the honest response would be devastating. Sarah reaches over and adjusts my blanket, a small gesture of care that brings unexpected tears to my eyes. "Sweetheart," she says, "loving parents don't forget their child's cancer treatment. They don't treat chemotherapy appointments like routine errands that can be missed for work obligations. They don't leave their 26-year-old daughter to navigate a life-threatening illness alone." The tears I've been holding back for months finally spill over. Sarah hands me tissues without making a big deal of it, continuing to monitor my IV pump while I cry. "What does that mean?" I ask when I can speak again. "About them? About me?" "It means you've been incredibly strong in an impossible situation," Sarah says, "and it means you deserve better than you've been getting." Through the window, I watch a woman my age walking slowly through the courtyard with an older couple who must be her parents. They move at her pace, the father carrying a bag that probably contains snacks and entertainment for treatment day. The mother has her arm linked through her daughter's, not supporting her weight, but maintaining connection. I keep making excuses for them, I admit. "That's what children do," Sarah says. "We protect our parents' image of themselves as good people, even when their actions don't match that image." She checks her watch and makes a note in my chart. "I want you to think about something over the next 3 weeks. What would it look like if people in your life actually showed up for you? Not just physically, but emotionally. What would that feel like?" The question terrifies me because I've spent so long convincing myself that I don't need that kind of support. Imagining it feels like opening a door I might not be able to close again. "I don't know," I whisper. "That's okay," Sarah says. "We'll figure it out together." The morning of my 6th treatment arrives with unexpected snow. Denver streets slick and treacherous under a gray November sky. I sit at my kitchen table, staring at my phone while my untouched coffee grows cold. Sarah's number is already pulled up on the screen, her offer from 3 weeks ago, echoing in my memory. Transportation assistance, someone to drive me home, actual support instead of just managing alone. My apartment feels different today. Smaller, quieter, like the walls are pressing in. The architectural drawings spread across my dining table represent 2 months of work on the community center project, but I can't barely focus on the clean lines and measured spaces. Everything feels fragile this morning, including me. At 7:30 a.m., my phone rings. Mom's name appears on the display. "Good morning, sweetheart. I'm calling between patients. Are you still doing that treatment thing today?" That treatment thing. 4 months of chemotherapy reduced to a casual afterthought. "Yes, Mom, same as always, every 3 weeks at 10:30. Right. Well, I'm covering for Janet today. She called in sick, so I definitely can't drive you. But you've been handling it fine on your own, haven't you?" The question hangs there, loaded with expectation. She wants me to confirm that her absence doesn't matter, that I'm strong enough to handle cancer treatment the way I handled everything else growing up. "Actually," I hear myself saying, "I was hoping someone could come with me today." Silence on the other end, except for the hospital sounds, monitors beeping, voices calling out medical terminology. "Come with you? Honey, it's just sitting in a chair, right? You said it wasn't that complicated." "It's 4 hours of chemotherapy, Mom. Poison going into my body to kill cancer cells." "Don't be so dramatic, Emma. It's medicine, not poison." Her voice carries the dismissive tone I've heard my entire life when I've tried to explain something she doesn't want to understand. "Listen, I have to go. Patient coming in with chest pain. You'll be fine. You always are."
The line goes dead.
I stare at my phone for a long moment, then scroll to Dad's contact. He answers on the second ring. Emma? What's wrong? I'm heading into a meeting with the city planning committee. I have chemotherapy today. I was wondering if you could drive me. Today? I thought that was next week. Papers rustle in the background. Sweetheart, this committee meeting determines whether the Morrison project gets approved. We're talking about 18 months of work and $500,000 in revenue. I understand that it's important. How about I call you afterward? We should celebrate if the project gets approved. Maybe dinner this weekend? Dad, Honey, I'm walking into the conference room now. We'll talk later, okay? Love you. Another deadline, another dismissal disguised as affection. I sit in the silence of my apartment, surrounded by evidence of my carefully controlled life. My work spread across every surface, bills organized in neat stacks, medication schedule taped to the refrigerator, everything managed, everything handled, everything fine. Except I'm not fine. I'm 26 years old with cancer, and I've spent 4 months pretending that navigating this alone is normal, pretending that other people's priorities naturally take precedence over my life-threatening illness, pretending that I don't deserve the kind of care I see other patients receiving. I think about Sarah's words from last week. What would it look like if people in your life actually showed up for you? My hands shake as I dial her number. Sarah Martinez. It's Emma Blackwood. I know you don't start your shift until 9, but Emma, what's going on? You sound upset. The kindness in her voice nearly undoes me completely. I called my parents, asked if someone could drive me today. They both said no. I see. There's a pause where I can hear her moving around, probably at home getting ready for work. How are you feeling about that? Angry, I admit, surprising myself with honesty. And sad, and like I'm being ridiculous for wanting someone to care that I have cancer. You're not being ridiculous. Emma, listen to me. What you're asking for, support during medical treatment, is completely reasonable. It's what most people expect from their family. But they're not most people. I say, the words coming out faster now. They're busy. They have important work. They've always been this way. I should have learned by now not to expect anything different. Or, Sarah says gently, maybe it's time to stop protecting them from the consequences of their choices. The suggestion hits like cold air filling my lungs. Stop protecting them. Stop making excuses. Stop pretending their absence doesn't hurt. What do you mean? I mean, you've been managing their guilt for them by insisting you don't need help. You've been making their neglect easier by never asking for what you actually need. I walk to my bedroom window, looking out at the snow-covered street. Other people are beginning their day, walking dogs, scraping ice off windshields, living lives where Tuesday morning chemotherapy isn't a reality. I don't know how to stop, I admit. Start small. Start today. Let me pick you up for treatment. You don't have to. Emma, she says firm but not unkind. Stop saying I don't have to. I'm offering because I want to help, because you deserve help, because it's what should happen when someone is going through cancer treatment. Tears run down my face, but for the first time in months, they don't feel like weakness. Okay, I whisper. Okay? Yes, I'd like you to pick me up. I'd like help. Good. Text me your address. I'll be there at 10. After we hang up, I sit on my bed feeling something I haven't experienced in years. Anticipation of being cared for. It's terrifying and exciting and completely foreign. At 9:45, I watch from my living room window as a blue Honda Civic pulls up to my building. Sarah gets out, wearing jeans and a heavy coat, looking like any other person instead of a medical professional. She waves when she sees me in the window.
As I gather my things, messenger bag, water bottle, the soft blanket Rebecca sent last month, I make a decision that feels both inevitable and revolutionary. I turn off my phone. Not just silenced. Off. Completely unreachable for the first time since my diagnosis. If my parents realize they haven't heard from me after treatment, if they wonder whether I made it safely through another round of chemotherapy, if they feel even a moment's concern about their daughter navigating cancer alone, well, maybe that's exactly what needs to happen. I lock my apartment door and walk toward Sarah's car, toward the first treatment where someone will actually be taking care of me. The snow crunches under my feet and each step feels lighter than the last. Sarah gets out to help me into the passenger seat, taking my bag and arranging the blanket across my lap like I'm someone worth fussing over. "Ready?" she asks, adjusting the heat and checking that my seatbelt is secure. "I think so." As we drive toward the cancer center, I watch familiar streets pass by from the passenger seat instead of behind the wheel. For the first time in 4 months, someone else is responsible for getting me safely to treatment. Someone else is thinking about timing and parking and making sure I arrive calm instead of stressed. It feels like stepping into a completely different life. "Sarah?" I say as we pull into the cancer center parking lot. "Yeah?" "Thank you for seeing me." She turns off the engine and looks at me with those kind eyes that started this whole transformation. "Emma," she says, "everyone deserves to be seen." 6 weeks later, I'm sitting in Sarah's kitchen at 7 a.m. on a Saturday morning, watching her 16-year-old son Marcus debate the merits of different college engineering programs with her husband David over pancakes. Steam rises from my mug of herbal tea, real tea, not the medicinal ginger blend I've grown accustomed to, because this week marks a milestone I never thought I'd reach. My hair is growing back. "Mom, tell Dad that MIT isn't the only good engineering school," Marcus says, gesturing with his fork. "Colorado School of Mines has an excellent program, and I could stay closer to home." "Your mom thinks you should explore all your options," David says, catching Sarah's eye across the table. "But she also thinks you're mature enough to make your own decision." The casual family dynamic feels both foreign and wonderful. They disagree without anyone shutting down. They tease each other without cruelty. When Marcus spills syrup on his shirt, Sarah hands him a towel instead of sighing about the mess. "Emma," Marcus says, turning to me, "you're an architect, right? What's the best school for someone who wants to design sustainable buildings?" The question catches me off guard. In my family, career discussions always centered around my parents' work. Dad's latest project challenges, Mom's difficult shifts in the ER. No one has ever asked my professional opinion at a breakfast table. "Well," I say, setting down my tea, "it depends on what aspect of sustainability interests you most. Are you thinking about renewable energy systems or sustainable materials or maybe urban planning approaches?" As I explain different programs and their specialties, I notice Sarah watching me with a small smile. Later, as we clean up dishes, she mentions it. "You light up when you talk about architecture," she says, rinsing plates in the sink. "I don't think I've seen that before." "What do you mean?" "In the infusion room, you always seem so focused on just getting through treatment. But just now, talking about design and sustainability, you looked excited about the future." The observation stops me mid-motion, dish towel suspended in my hands. She's right. For months, I've been so focused on surviving each treatment that I've barely thought about what comes after. My work at the community center has felt mechanical, something to keep my hands busy during recovery, rather than a project I'm passionate about. I guess I haven't been thinking much beyond finishing chemotherapy, I admit. And now? I consider the question as we finish cleaning up. My last treatment is scheduled for next month. Dr. Martinez says my scans look promising. For the first time since diagnosis, the future feels like something I might actually get to experience.
Now I'm starting to think about what I want to build, I say. The shift in perspective started 3 weeks ago, during my 7th treatment. Sarah had stayed late to drive me home, as had become our routine, but instead of the usual exhausted collapse on my couch, I'd felt well enough to show her the community center plans I'd been working on. "This is incredible," she'd said, studying the detailed drawings spread across my dining table. "Look at how you've designed these spaces to flow together. And these sight lines. You can see from the children's area to the adult learning center. Parents can keep an eye on their kids while attending classes." Her enthusiasm had been infectious.
For the first time in months, I'd seen my work through fresh eyes, not just as a distraction from cancer, but as something meaningful I was creating. Have you thought about incorporating healing gardens? She'd asked. Research shows that access to nature can significantly impact recovery and mental health. That conversation had sparked something. I'd started researching therapeutic design, reaching out to contacts in healthcare architecture, imagining spaces that could actually help people heal. The community center project had evolved from a standard municipal building into something that could serve people dealing with medical challenges, family crises, social isolation. Now, sitting in Sarah's sunny kitchen while her family prepares for their Saturday activities, I feel something I haven't experienced in years: belonging. Not the conditional belonging I'd known with my parents, where my value depended on not needing anything, but the unconditional acceptance of people who see my full humanity. I should head home, I say, checking the time. Rebecca's calling at noon, and I want to show her the latest design revisions. How is Rebecca doing? Sarah asks, walking me to the door. Really well. She's thinking about visiting next month, maybe timing it with my last treatment. Sarah hands me my coat, and I notice the easy way she does it, not making a big deal about helping, not treating me like I'm fragile, just the natural care that happens between people who matter to each other. That would be wonderful, she says. I'd love to meet her. As I drive home through Denver's bright Saturday morning traffic, I think about how my life has changed since that snowy day when I first accepted Sarah's help. The weekly routine we've established, her picking me up for treatments, staying with me during the infusions, driving me home and making sure I'm settled, has become the anchor point around which everything else revolves. But it's more than just transportation. Sarah has introduced me to a different way of existing in the world. She asks about my dreams, not just my symptoms. She remembers details about my work projects and follows up on conversations we had weeks earlier. When I mentioned feeling isolated between treatments, she invited me to family dinners. When I worried about my hair loss, she connected me with other young women who'd been through similar experiences. Most importantly, she's taught me that accepting help doesn't diminish me, it connects me. My phone remains off during treatments now, a boundary I've maintained despite the guilt it initially triggered. The first week, my parents hadn't even noticed. The second week, Mom had left a voicemail asking why I wasn't answering, but she'd assumed I was busy with work. It wasn't until the third week that Dad had called Sarah directly at the hospital, having finally realized that his daughter was unreachable during what he still referred to as medical appointments. Your father seemed confused about why you weren't answering your phone, Sarah had told me after fielding his call. I explained that you were receiving chemotherapy and would call him back when you felt well enough. The conversation had been brief and uncomfortable for him. He had apparently expected Sarah to put me on the phone immediately, and when she explained that patients often need recovery time after treatment, he'd seemed genuinely surprised. Did he ask how I was doing? I asked. He asked when I'd be available to discuss the Morrison project timeline. Even with the sting of his priorities, I'd felt something new: protection. Sarah hadn't handed me the phone or made excuses for my unavailability. She simply stated the reality of my situation and expected him to respect it. Back in my apartment, I spread the latest community center drawings across my table and video call Rebecca. Her face fills my laptop screen, bright and animated from her Seattle office. Emma, you look amazing. Seriously, your skin has this glow I haven't seen in months. I feel different, I admit. Stronger, maybe. Like I'm finally taking up the space I'm supposed to occupy. Tell me about the new designs, Rebecca says, leaning closer to her camera. As I walk her through the therapeutic garden spaces, the family resource center, the quiet rooms designed for people dealing with medical challenges, I realize something profound has shifted. I'm not just surviving cancer anymore. I'm integrating the experience into something meaningful.
Rebecca, I say when I finish the presentation, I think I want to specialize in healthcare architecture, spaces that actually help people heal. Her smile could light up the screen. Emma, that's incredible. Have you told your parents about this direction?
The question brings me back to earth. I haven't talked to my parents about anything substantial in weeks. Our conversations have become surface-level check-ins where they ask if I'm feeling better, and I give brief updates before they transition to their own concerns. Not yet, I say. I'm not sure they'd understand. What about Sarah? What does she think? Sarah gets it. She sees possibilities I didn't even know existed. As we wrap up the call, Rebecca asks the question I've been avoiding. Have you thought about what happens after treatment ends? With your parents, I mean? I look out my window at the city I've learned to navigate differently over the past 2 months. Denver looks the same, but my relationship to it has changed. I know which coffee shops have comfortable seating for post-treatment recovery. I know which routes to the hospital avoid traffic stress. I know that Sarah's house has a guest room where I'm always welcome. I think, I say slowly, I'm going to find out who I am when I'm not trying to be invisible. Rebecca nods, understanding immediately. That sounds exactly right. After we hang up, I sit in the quiet of my apartment, surrounded by architectural drawings that represent not just buildings, but possibilities. For the first time in my life, I'm not just managing, I'm not just surviving, I'm not just being strong enough not to need anything. I'm building something new. The call comes at 2:47 a.m. on a Tuesday, 3 days before my final chemotherapy treatment. My phone buzzes insistently on the nightstand, pulling me from sleep with the sharp urgency that always accompanies middle-of-the-night calls. The display shows Dad Mobile. Emma? His voice is strained, unfamiliar. Are you awake? I'm awake. What's wrong? It's your mother. The words come out in a rush. She collapsed during her shift tonight. They're saying it might be a stroke. The room tilts sideways. What hospital? Good Samaritan, where she works. Emma, I can't. His voice breaks completely. They won't tell me anything because I'm not a medical family. I need you here. Medical family. The phrase hits like ice water. As a nurse's daughter, I know what it means. Immediate relatives who can make medical decisions, who get information during emergencies, who are considered next of kin. Dad's panic makes sense now. He's always depended on Mom to navigate medical situations. I'll be right there, I hear myself saying, already reaching for clothes. Thank you. God, Emma, I don't know what I'd do if... Dad, breathe. I'm coming. As I drive through Denver's empty streets towards Good Samaritan Hospital, my mind races with bitter irony. For 8 months, I've navigated my own medical crisis largely alone. Now, with 3 days left in my treatment, I'm racing to handle theirs. The emergency department where Mom works is chaotic at 3 a.m., all harsh fluorescent lights and urgent voices. I find Dad in the family waiting area, hunched forward in a plastic chair, still wearing his pajama shirt under a hastily thrown-on jacket. He looks smaller than I remember. Older, like someone who's been hollowed out by fear. Emma. He stands when he sees me, reaching out like he wants to hug me, but isn't sure he should. Thank God you're here. What do we know? She was helping with a trauma case around 1 a.m. Another nurse found her in the supply closet unconscious. They did a CT scan, but the doctor will only talk to the immediate family. He runs his hands through his hair. I've been her husband for 30 years, but apparently that doesn't matter in a medical emergency. A young resident approaches our section of the waiting room, clipboard in hand. Family of Margaret Blackwood? That's us, I say, stepping forward. I'm her daughter Emma, and this is her husband Robert. The resident, Dr. Kim, according to her badge, looks between us. The good news is that it wasn't a stroke. Your mother experienced what we call a syncopal episode, likely due to severe dehydration and exhaustion. Her electrolytes were dangerously imbalanced. Dad sags with relief, but I find myself asking the follow-up questions that come naturally after months of medical conversations.
What caused the dehydration? Has she been sick? Any other symptoms we should know about? Dr. Kim checks her notes. When did you last speak with your mother about her health?
The question hangs uncomfortably in the air. When did I last have a real conversation with Mom about anything substantial? Our recent exchanges have been brief and surface level, mostly her asking if I'm feeling better without waiting for detailed answers. We talk regularly, Dad says, but she doesn't usually mention if she's not feeling well. She's always been tough about that kind of thing. According to her colleagues, she's been picking up extra shifts for the past 2 months, working 12-hour days, sometimes back-to-back shifts, not taking breaks, not eating properly. One nurse mentioned that she seemed distracted lately, worried about something. Dad looks confused. Worried about what? She didn't tell me she was picking up extra shifts. But I know, the realization hits me like a physical blow. 2 months ago was when I stopped answering my phone during treatments, when Dad called the hospital looking for me, when they finally understood that their daughter was going through something more serious than routine medical appointments. She's been working extra to pay for something, I say quietly. Medical bills, probably. Medical bills? Dad's eyebrows furrow. But your insurance covers the cancer treatment, right? You said it was covered. The assumption that I've been handling my own medical finances, that they've never even asked about costs or offered help, shouldn't surprise me anymore. But standing in the ER where a mom works herself into collapse, it feels particularly sharp. Insurance covers most of it, I say carefully, but there are co-pays, prescription costs, lost wages from sick days. Dr. Kim glances between us, clearly picking up on family dynamics that go beyond her medical concerns. Is your mother typically a caregiver for other family members? Sometimes caregivers neglect their own health when they're worried about someone else. The irony is so thick I almost laugh. Mom neglecting her health while worrying about me, except she's been absent for my actual care, working extra shifts instead of being present for treatments. Can we see her? Dad asks. She's stable now, getting IV fluids and electrolyte replacement. Room 7, behind the blue curtain. As we walk through the emergency department, Dad keeps glancing at me like he's seeing me differently. Emma, he says hesitantly, you've been dealing with medical stuff for months. How are you? What questions should I be asking? The question reveals how completely he's relied on Mom to handle anything health-related, the same way he's always relied on me to handle my own needs without guidance or support. We find Mom behind the blue curtain, looking pale and small in the hospital bed. She's awake but groggy, IV lines running into both arms. When she sees us, her eyes fill with tears. I'm sorry, she whispers. I didn't mean to scare anyone. Dad takes her hand, careful not to disturb the IV. Don't apologize. You scared me to death, but you're okay. That's what matters. Emma, Mom says, focusing on me with difficulty. You shouldn't be here. Don't you have treatment tomorrow? The fact that she remembers my treatment schedule while lying in an emergency bed would be touching if it weren't so complicated. She knows the timing but has never been present for any of it. Treatment's Thursday, I correct gently, and I'm exactly where I should be. I've been so worried, she continues, tears spilling over, about the bills, about you going through this alone, about being a terrible mother. The confession hangs in the air between us. Dad looks shocked. Apparently Mom's guilt and worry have been invisible to him the same way my needs have been. You've been working extra shifts to pay my medical bills? I ask. She nods miserably. I know we haven't been there for you the way we should have been. I thought if I could at least help financially. Mom, working yourself into the hospital isn't helping anyone. The next few hours pass in a blur of medical monitoring and family conversations that feel both overdue and overwhelming. Mom needs to stay for observation and IV fluids. Dad paces the small room asking questions about symptoms and recovery that reveal how little he understands about medical care. Around 6 a.m., a nurse I recognize from Mom's department stops by the room. Janet, the one whose sick calls Mom has been covering.
Margaret, honey, you gave us all such a scare, Janet says, then notices me. You must be Emma. Your mom talks about you all the time. She does? Oh, constantly. How proud she is of your strength, how worried she's been about you going through cancer treatment, how guilty she feels about not being more involved. Janet pauses, looking between Mom and me. She's been carrying a lot of guilt about her work schedule conflicting with your appointments. This version of my mother, worried, guilty, talking about me at her colleagues, feels like a stranger.
The mother I know has seemed largely unaffected by my diagnosis, treating my treatment schedule as a minor inconvenience that I handle independently. I didn't know you talked about me at work, I say to Mom. All the time, she whispers. I didn't know how to talk about it with you. You always seemed so strong, so capable of handling everything. I was afraid that if I showed how scared I was, it would make things harder for you. The parallel becomes clear. She's been protecting me from her fear the same way I've been protecting her from my need for support. We've both been managing our own emotions separately instead of sharing the experience. Mom, I say carefully, I haven't been handling everything as well as it looks. Dad stops pacing and turns to listen. I've needed help. I've needed support. I've been scared and sick and lonely. The words come out faster now, months of suppressed truth finally finding voice. I stopped answering my phone during treatments because I couldn't handle feeling invisible anymore. Mom's face crumples. Invisible? When you called cancer treatment that treatment thing, when Dad forgot which weeks I had appointments, when neither of you ever asked what chemotherapy actually felt like, I felt like I didn't matter. The room falls silent except for the steady beep of Mom's monitor. We mattered to each other, but only when there was a crisis, only when someone needed rescuing. Dad sits down heavily in the visitor chair. Emma, we had no idea you felt that way. Because no one asked, I say, not unkindly, but with complete honesty. And I stopped trying to tell you. Outside the hospital room window, Denver is waking up to another ordinary Tuesday. But inside this small space, surrounded by medical equipment and the smell of antiseptic, we're finally having the conversation that should have started 8 months ago. Mom reaches for my hand with her free arm, the one not connected to IV lines. How do we fix this? She asks. Thursday morning arrives gray and cold, the sky outside my apartment window matching the heaviness in my chest. Today is my final chemotherapy treatment, a milestone I should be celebrating. Instead, I'm sitting at my kitchen table at 6 a.m., staring at 17 missed calls from Dad and a series of increasingly frantic text messages. Mom's being discharged this morning, but she's not supposed to be alone for 48 hours. Can you come stay with her? I have the Henderson project deadline. Emma, I know it's your treatment day, but this is an emergency. Please call me back. I don't know what else to do. The last message arrived at 5:30 this morning. I've had to cancel my meetings. This is costing the firm thousands of dollars. We need to figure something out. I set my phone face down on the table and close my eyes. 2 days ago, in Mom's hospital room, we'd finally started having honest conversations about needs and support and showing up for each other. But now, faced with actual logistics and inconvenience, the old patterns are reasserting themselves with breathtaking speed. My phone buzzes with an incoming call. Sarah's name appears on the screen. Good morning, I answer, grateful for her voice. How are you feeling about today? Big day, final treatment. It should feel bigger than it does, I admit. My mom was discharged from the hospital this morning, and my dad wants me to cancel my appointment to stay with her. Silence on the other end, then Sarah's voice, carefully controlled. He wants you to cancel your final chemotherapy treatment to babysit your mother? She's not supposed to be alone for 48 hours. Dad has work obligations. Emma, Sarah's tone is gentle but firm. Do you hear yourself right now?
I do hear myself, and I hate what I'm hearing. I sound like the old Emma, the one who automatically sacrificed her own needs to solve other people's problems, the one who made excuses for other people's priorities. I know how it sounds, I say quietly.
Tell me what you want to do today. The question stops me cold. What do I want? For 8 months, I've been focused on surviving treatment, on getting through each appointment and managing side effects. Only recently, with Sarah's support, have I started thinking about what comes after. Today was supposed to mark the end of active treatment and the beginning of whatever comes next. I want to finish my chemotherapy, I say, surprised by how clear the words sound. I want to celebrate getting through 8 months of cancer treatment. I want to mark this milestone with people who've actually been present for the journey. Good. What else? I want my parents to figure out their own crisis instead of automatically assuming I'll handle it for them. Even better, how are you going to make that happen? I look around my apartment, the space I've learned to inhabit as myself instead of as someone else's solution to a problem. The architectural drawings spread across my dining table represent not just work, but a future I'm actively building. The thank you card from Rebecca sits on my refrigerator next to my treatment schedule, both marking important relationships and achievements. I'm going to set boundaries, I say, feeling something solidify in my chest. Real ones. I'll pick you up at 10. And Emma, I'm proud of you. After we hang up, I call Dad back. He answers on the first ring. Emma, thank God. Can you be there by 9? I need to get to the office. No, I say simply. What do you mean, no? I mean, no, I can't be there by 9. I have my final chemotherapy treatment today. Can't you reschedule? Your mother needs... Dad, stop. The firmness in my own voice surprises me. I'm not rescheduling my cancer treatment for your convenience. This isn't about convenience, Emma. This is about family responsibility. You're right. It is about family responsibility. So let me explain what that looks like. I take a deep breath, drawing on months of conversations with Sarah about healthy families and reasonable expectations. Responsible family members don't ask someone to skip medical treatment. They don't assume one person will handle every crisis, and they don't frame their own convenience as someone else's moral obligation. Dad is quiet for a long moment. Emma, I don't understand. You've always been willing to help when we needed you. Because I thought that was the only way to matter to you, I say, the truth coming out more honest than I intended. But it shouldn't be. My value to this family shouldn't depend on my availability to solve your problems. We don't think of you that way. Dad, when was the last time you called just to see how I was doing? Not because you needed something, not because there was a crisis, but just because you wanted to know how your daughter was feeling. Another long silence. I don't know, he admits quietly. When was the last time you asked about my work, my dreams, my life outside of what I can do for other people? Emma, I'm finishing my chemotherapy today. After that, I'm happy to help you figure out care for Mom, but I'm not doing it instead of taking care of myself anymore. What does that mean, practically speaking? The question reveals how little he understands about collaborative problem-solving versus crisis delegation. It means we make a plan together. You research home care services. I'll help you with interview options. We'll split the cost if needed. You'll arrange time off work, or we'll hire professional help for the hours you can't be there. We'll handle this like adults who share responsibility instead of like a parent delegating to a child. Okay, that sounds reasonable. But what am I supposed to do today?
Figure it out, I say, not unkindly, but without offering to solve it for him. Call Mom's doctor and ask about professional care services. Call your employees and delegate the Henderson deadline. Call Mom's nursing colleagues. Janet offered to help when we were at the hospital. Handle your family emergency like the capable adult you are. Emma, I've never had to... I know, because I always did it for you, but I'm not doing that anymore. After I hang up, I sit in the quiet of my apartment, feeling something I've never experienced before.
The weight of other people's problems rolling off my shoulders instead of settling there permanently. It's terrifying and liberating simultaneously. My phone rings again 20 minutes later. This time, it's Mom. "Emma, sweetheart, your father says you can't help today because of your treatment." "That's right." "But honey, I'm scared to be alone. What if I get dizzy again? What if something happens?" The old Emma would have immediately caved to the fear in her voice. The old Emma would have rushed over with reassurances and solutions. But the new Emma, the one who's learned the difference between helping and enabling, recognizes manipulation disguised as vulnerability. "Mom, that's a valid concern. What's your plan for addressing it?" "My plan? I thought you would come over." "I'm not available today, but there are other options. Have you called Janet about her offer to help? Have you looked into the professional services Dad should be researching?" "I don't know how to do those things." "You're a nurse with 30 years of medical experience. You know exactly how to research care services and coordinate help. You just don't want to do the work when you assume I'll do it for you." The words come out harsher than I intended, but they're true. "Emma, that's not fair." What's not fair is expecting me to manage your crisis on the same day I finish 8 months of cancer treatment that you've been largely absent for. Mom goes quiet, and I can hear her crying. "I know we haven't been good parents through this. I know we've let you down, but I'm scared, and I don't know how to fix any of it." The tears in her voice make my chest ache, but I hold firm. "Mom, I love you, and because I love you, I'm not going to keep enabling you to avoid taking responsibility for your own life." "What does that mean?" "It means you're going to figure out today's care situation without me. It means you're going to start showing up for your own medical recovery the way I had to show up for mine. And it means that if you want a relationship with me going forward, it's going to be based on mutual care instead of crisis management." "I don't know how to do that." "Then you'll learn, the same way I learned how to navigate cancer treatment when no one was available to help me." After Mom hangs up, I shower and get dressed for my final treatment, choosing clothes that feel celebratory rather than merely functional. I pack my messenger bag with the architectural journals Rebecca sent last week and the thank you card I wrote for Sarah, small tokens of the life I've built beyond my family's dysfunction. At 9:45, my phone buzzes with a text from Dad. "Found a home care service that can start this afternoon. Mom's friend Janet is coming over until they arrive. We're handling it." No guilt trip, no emotional manipulation, just a father taking responsibility for his family's crisis. I text back, "Good, thank you for figuring it out." At exactly 10 a.m., Sarah's blue Honda pulls up outside my building. I grab my bag and head downstairs, feeling lighter with each step. When I get into the passenger seat, Sarah is smiling. "How did it go?" she asks. "I think I just learned how to be someone's daughter instead of their employee." "How does it feel?" I consider the question as we drive toward the cancer center through Denver's morning traffic. How does it feel to set boundaries? To refuse to solve other people's problems at my own expense? To insist on my own value beyond my usefulness? Scary, I admit. But right. That's exactly how it should feel. Growth is supposed to be uncomfortable.
As we pull into the cancer center parking lot for the last time, I see Rebecca's rental car parked near the entrance. She kept her promise to be here for my final treatment, flying in from Seattle to mark this milestone with me. "Are you ready to finish this thing?" Sarah asks, turning off the engine. I look at the building where I've spent so many hours learning to accept help, to value myself, to imagine a future beyond survival. Today marks the end of active treatment, but it feels more like a beginning. "I'm ready," I say, and for the first time in my life, I mean it completely.
18 months later, I'm standing in the lobby of the Denver Community Wellness Center, watching families move through the space I designed from my deepest understanding of what it means to need care. Afternoon sunlight streams through the clerestory windows, illuminating the therapeutic garden visible through floor-to-ceiling glass walls. Children play in the sensory garden while their parents attend support group meetings in adjacent rooms, sightlines carefully planned so no one feels separated or forgotten. Ms. Blackwood? A young woman approaches, her 6-year-old daughter trailing behind, clutching a stuffed elephant. I'm Maria Santos. We spoke on the phone about the Pediatric Oncology Family Support Program. I recognize the look in Maria's eyes, the particular exhaustion that comes from navigating a child's cancer diagnosis while trying to maintain normal life. Her daughter Sophia was recently diagnosed with leukemia, and they're looking for resources to help the whole family cope. Of course, I say, kneeling to Sophia's eye level. I love your elephant. What's their name? Esperanza, Sophia says shyly. It means hope in Spanish. That's a beautiful name for a beautiful elephant, I tell her, then stand to address Maria. Let me show you around the space and we can talk about the programs that might help your family. As we walk through the building, I point out features that most visitors might miss, but that make all the difference for families dealing with medical challenges. The quiet alcoves with comfortable seating where tired parents can rest while children play safely within view. The family resource library stocked with age-appropriate books about illness and recovery. The meditation room with sound-dampening walls where people can process emotions privately. The architectural philosophy here is based on connection and choice. People need to feel seen and supported, but they also need control over their level of engagement. You really understand what families go through, Maria observes. Have you worked in healthcare architecture for a long time? Actually, I'm a cancer survivor myself. I designed this building based on what I wish had existed during my own treatment. Maria's expression shifts, recognition and gratitude replacing polite interest. When were you diagnosed? 3 years ago, breast cancer at 26. I guide them toward the pediatric area where Sophia immediately gravitates toward a reading nook designed specifically for children receiving medical treatment. The experience taught me a lot about what people actually need when they're dealing with illness versus what we assume they need. Through the glass walls of the meditation room, I catch sight of a familiar figure facilitating what appears to be a family therapy session. Dr. Rachel Thompson, the family therapist who started working here 6 months after we opened, has become both a colleague and a friend. She waves when she sees me, then returns her attention to the family seated in a circle of comfortable chairs. Is that a therapy session? Maria asks. Family therapy, specifically designed for people dealing with medical challenges. Dr. Thompson specializes in helping families communicate better during health crises. She's incredible at helping people figure out how to support each other effectively instead of just trying harder at the same dysfunctional patterns. The words carry personal weight that Maria probably doesn't catch, but they represent one of the most significant developments in my own life. 6 months after my final treatment, when my relationship with my parents had stabilized into a tense but honest new dynamic, Sarah suggested family therapy. Not crisis intervention, but proactive work to build healthier communication patterns. Would that be helpful for your family? I asked Maria. Maybe, she says, watching Sophia arrange stuffed animals in the reading nook. My husband and I are handling Sophia's diagnosis very differently. He wants to research everything and make detailed plans. I just want to focus on today and not think about worst-case scenarios. We're not fighting, but we're not really supporting each other either. That's incredibly common, I assure her. Dr. Thompson says that medical crises reveal communication patterns that were already there. They don't create new problems, but they also create opportunities to build better patterns if families are willing to do the work. As I showed Maria the program offerings and introduced her to staff members, I find myself reflecting on how different this conversation would have been 3 years ago. Then I would have minimized my own experience, focused entirely on her needs, and probably offered to personally solve whatever problems she identified. Now, I share my story as relevant information without making it the center of attention, and I trust that she can make her own decisions about what resources might help.
Emma! Rebecca's voice carries across the lobby. I turn to see her approaching with a woman I don't recognize, both carrying coffee from the cafe we built into the building's first floor. Rebecca, perfect timing, I say, genuinely delighted to see my best friend. Maria, I'd like you to meet Rebecca Chen, one of our consulting architects. She designed the technology integration for our telehealth services. And this is Dr. Jennifer Walsh, Rebecca adds, gesturing to her companion. She's considering establishing a satellite program here for her practice in family medicine. As the four women talk, Sophia emerges from the reading nook carrying a picture book about a little girl who goes to the hospital. She tugs on my sleeve. Miss Emma, why did you make this place? The question is simple, but the answer encompasses 3 years of transformation, grief, growth, and intentional choices about who I want to be in the world. Because everyone deserves to have people who see them and help them, I tell her. And sometimes we have to build the places where that can happen. Sophia nods seriously, as if this makes perfect sense to her 6-year-old understanding of the world. Later that afternoon, after Maria and Sophia have enrolled in several programs and Dr. Walsh has scheduled a follow-up meeting about expanding services, I'm sitting in my office reviewing architectural plans for our second location when Sarah knocks on my door. Got a minute? She asks, entering with 2 cups of tea from the cafe downstairs. Always for you, I say, accepting the mug gratefully. Sarah has officially retired from hospital nursing 8 months ago and now serves as our Director of Patient Family Services, a role that utilizes her decades of medical experience while allowing her to focus on holistic family support rather than acute medical care. How did it go with the Santos family? She asks, settling into the chair across from my desk. Really well. Maria seems open to family therapy, and Sophia is already excited about the children's programs. I pause, considering how to articulate something I've been thinking about. Sarah, do you ever think about parallel universes? Like, what would have happened if you hadn't noticed that I needed help 3 years ago? Sarah sips her tea thoughtfully. I think about it sometimes, but not in a regretful way, more in a grateful way, because it reminds me how much difference one person can make by simply paying attention. I was so convinced that I didn't deserve help, that needing support was a weakness, that my value came from handling everything alone. And now, I gesture around my office, walls covered with architectural drawings for wellness centers, thank you letters from families we've served, photos from the cancer survivor support group I co-facilitate with Dr. Thompson. Now I know that needing help is just being human, and that my experience only becomes valuable when I use it to create something meaningful for other people. My phone buzzes with a text from Mom. Can you call when you have a chance? Nothing urgent, just want to hear about your day. The message represents a small miracle of growth. Mom has learned to distinguish between urgent and non-urgent communication, to ask about my life without expecting immediate responses, and to express interest in my daily experience rather than just crisis situations. It's taken 3 years of family therapy, consistent boundaries, and my parents' genuine commitment to changing ingrained patterns.
Speaking of family, Sarah says, noticing my phone, how are things going with your parents? Different, I say, which has become my standard response because it's the most accurate word. Better in some ways, more honest in others. We have family dinner once a month now, and they actually ask about my work and listen to the answers. Mom has learned to offer help without assuming I'll say yes, and Dad has learned to handle his own emergencies before calling me. That's huge progress. It is, but it's also ongoing work. Last month, Mom caught herself mid-sentence trying to minimize one of my accomplishments and actually stopped to acknowledge what she was doing. Dad called last week just to tell me he was proud of the wellness center, not because he needed anything. The transformation hasn't been linear or easy.
There were months of difficult family therapy sessions where old resentments surfaced and had to be processed. Times when my parents reverted to crisis-driven communication patterns, and I had to reinforce boundaries. Holidays that felt awkward as we learned new ways of relating to each other.
But there have also been genuine moments of connection. Mom attending the wellness center's grand opening and staying for the entire reception, asking thoughtful questions about my design choices. Dad referring potential clients to my healthcare architecture consulting practice because he's genuinely proud of my expertise. Both of them learning to talk about my cancer experience with honest emotion instead of defensive minimization. They're not perfect, I continue, but they're trying, and I'm not responsible for managing their feelings about their own growth anymore. Sarah nods with the understanding that comes from years of helping families navigate medical crises. That's the hardest part for a lot of people, learning that you can love someone and still maintain boundaries with them. I think the therapy has been harder for them than it was for me, I reflect. I'd already learned that I could survive without their emotional support. They had to learn that they'd been relying on me to manage things they should have been handling themselves. A knock on my office door interrupts our conversation. Dr. Thompson pokes her head in, her expression excited. "Emma, do you have a few minutes? I just got off a call with the National Cancer Institute. They want to discuss funding for a research study on family-centered wellness architecture." "Serious?" I set down my tea, immediately interested. Very serious. They're looking at how physical environments impact family coping during cancer treatment, and our wellness center model is exactly what they want to study. The opportunity represents validation of something I've believed since my own diagnosis, that healing happens in relationships and community, not just in medical interventions. The Wellness Center was designed to support not just individual patients, but entire family systems, based on my understanding that cancer affects everyone who loves the patient. "When do they want to talk?" I ask. "Next week. I'll send you the details." Dr. Thompson grins. "Emma, this could mean funding for 10 more wellness centers across the country." After she leaves, Sarah and I sit in comfortable silence, both processing the magnitude of what Dr. Thompson just shared. "You know what I keep thinking about?" I finally say. "What?" That scared 26-year-old sitting alone in chemotherapy, convinced that she didn't deserve help, trying so hard to be invisible that she almost disappeared completely. I look out my office window at the therapeutic garden where families are gathering for an outdoor support group session. She couldn't have imagined this. "She was never invisible," Sarah says gently. "She just needed someone to see her. And now she's building places where other people can be seen." Rebecca appears in my doorway again, this time with her laptop bag and car keys. "I'm heading back to Seattle, but I wanted to tell you that Dr. Walsh is definitely interested in partnering with us. She thinks family medicine integration could be a model for other wellness centers." As Rebecca and I hug goodbye, I'm struck by how natural it feels to be surrounded by people who support my work, celebrate my successes, and show up consistently without being asked. The chosen family I've built includes not just Sarah's household, but colleagues like Dr. Thompson, friends like Rebecca, and the community of cancer survivors I work with through the support groups. That evening, I drive to my parents' house for our monthly family dinner, a tradition we established in family therapy as a way to practice new communication patterns in a structured setting. When I arrive, Dad is in the kitchen helping Mom prepare a meal that includes several dishes I can actually eat, accommodations for lingering digestive sensitivity from chemotherapy that they now understand and plan for. "How was work today?" Mom asks as we settle around the dining table, the same oak table where I once sat unnoticed with my suitcase, but the dynamic completely transformed. Really exciting, actually. I tell them about the National Cancer Institute opportunity, watching their faces light up with genuine pride and interest. "That's incredible, Emma! You've built something amazing," Dad says. "We've built something amazing," I correct, thinking of Sarah's support, Dr. Thompson's expertise,
Rebecca's partnership, and the countless families who've helped shape the programs through their participation. "Can we visit the new location when construction starts?" Mom asks. "I'd love to see how you adapt the design for a different city." The question represents everything that's changed about our family dynamic. Mom asking to be included in my professional life, expressing genuine curiosity about my work, making plans to support something I'm passionate about. "I'd really like that," I tell her, meaning it completely. As we eat dinner, the conversation flows naturally between my work, their lives, current events, and family memories. Some painful, some joyful, all part of a shared history we're learning to discuss honestly. There are still moments of tension, old patterns that surface briefly before being recognized and redirected. But there's also genuine affection, mutual respect, and the hard-won trust that comes from people who've done the work to build healthier relationships. Later, driving home through Denver's quiet evening streets, I think about the young woman who started chemotherapy 3 years ago, convinced that she was strong enough to handle cancer alone because she'd always handled everything alone. She was strong, but strength without support is just another form of isolation. The difference now isn't that I'm weaker or more dependent. It's that I understand the difference between independence and isolation, between self-reliance and self-sacrifice, between being strong and being seen. My phone lights up with a text from Sofia Santos, sent through her mother's phone. "Thank you for building the Hope Place." The Hope Place. I've never heard the Wellness Center called that before, but it captures something essential about what we've created. A space where hope isn't just individual survival, but collective healing. Where being seen and supported isn't a luxury, but a fundamental human right. As I pull into my apartment building's parking garage, I realize that I am exactly where I always should have been: visible, valued, connected, and using my experience to create meaning for others. Not managing crises or minimizing needs, but building the world I wish had existed when I needed it most. Tomorrow, there will be more families to serve, more programs to develop, more opportunities to prove that healing happens in the community. Tonight, there's the quiet satisfaction of a life lived intentionally, relationships built on mutual care, and work that transforms pain into purpose. I am no longer invisible. I am no longer alone. I am no longer just surviving. I am building hope, one family at a time. Looking for more? We've got 2 amazing stories ready for you right on screen. If this one touched you, these are absolutely worth your time. Click to watch them now. And hey, subscribe and hit that bell to never miss our latest uploads.